now let's take a look at something else entirely. Well, kind of the same thing. So this is probably my favorite way to do pen testing through mobile devices. So we're going to take a look at our XP system. And we are going to have war FTP like we did in our exploit development section. So we're just going to nmap that device. And so it's going to be straight through the phone. So it is going to download the nmap application. And it's going to run it against that device, and it's going to record the results and upload them back to us. So you can imagine if we did a long list of hosts, or we gave it a subnet, that would take a while. We just did one host, so it should be pretty quick. So in this case, we are all on the same network. We're just on my VMware basically. But you can see how this would be useful if we had this on a phone that, say, went to work or went to the coffee shop or went home. We could use this to basically bypass the perimeter. So now we're doing an internal scan just through the phone. So our phone knows TCP/IP, so there's no reason it can't run nmap. Currently, it just does the SS nmap and not the SV, so that's something I need to change, certainly. Give you more options, at least, for nmap. You also need to put in tunneling, so you can do Nessus or even run Metasploit modules straight through. There's no reason we can't do HTTP tunneling. Since I have SMS tunneling, there's no reason we can't do that. So that's an upcoming feature. There's a lot of upcoming features. In fact, about the time I finish these videos, I'm going to spend some time working on updates for SPF. So since this is number 13, that should be pretty soon. Give it a little bit of time to finish. We can get those nmap results. Go back to our view information gathered. It should put it in a file. We go up to File, Root Smartphone Pen Test Framework, Framework Console, text.txt. Oh, it does do SV. My bad. I thought it did SS. You can actually see the command in here. It hasn't finished. This is just an empty output. If we give it a little bit more time, it should give us the actual ports. So it'll pull the command again until it's done. Still need to give you more options on nmap. Right now it just does exactly that. You can see the command. It just puts it into that folder. The downloaded files folder, and there we go, finally. So it does, it says SV, but it doesn't do a very good job of telling us. Oh, see, it's not SV. That was obviously something else. So it just does SS, or it might do ST, whatever the default is. So I guess ST, but it needs to be SV. So I need to change it. All right. So what we're going to do is use this war FTP meterpreter.c, but we need to change the shell code in it. So we're going to use MSF Venom, same way we did in our exploit development sections. So we're just going to regenerate the shellcode to call back to us at this IP address. Need to do those bad characters that we had in exploit development for our war FTP. So null, 40, 0A, and 0D. Format, we want it to be C. This is going to have to be C code at this point. I am working on making it so that you can just have it pivot through. Just I forgot lhost. Oops. Back to basics for me. Sure I get the right IP address. So I'm working on making it so that you could pivot through, just you could hook up Metasploit to it even, or use Python scripts. But as it is right now, it does need to be compiled so it can run on the phone. They all pretty much run some sort of C-like or even C proper in their kernel, so they can run C programs if they're compiled for the correct chipset. So this is an ARM device. They're just going to compile it with an ARM cross compiler. So it'll run on ARM instead of our Linux box, so we can't just use the regular GCC. But there's our shell code. This is one of the few times I like to use BI. So I'm going to use that DD command to get rid of the shell code that's in there. Just doing DD over and over to get rid of those lines. And then, in typical me fashion, I'm just going back to Nano, which I'm more comfortable with, to finish it. I could finish it in VI as well if that's what I was more comfortable with. I just really like Nano, particularly for demos. I'm just going to paste in my new shellcode here. I'm not going to have to worry about any of the offsets since it's the same size. If it was anything besides 317 bytes, if there had been changes in MSF Venom, I might have to worry about the offsets. And I didn't code this particularly well, so that wouldn't be much fun. But in this case, I can just leave it alone, just drop in the new shellcode. That example is, again, in the exploits Windows section, so you will have it when you pull down SPF. It is an example. Anything you have C code for, you can use this with. Then I just want to go to compile code to run on mobile devices, number 9. Compile C code for ARM Android. Give it what we want to compile and where we want to put it. So it'll just be doing GCC except for ARM devices, so it just has a cross compiler in it that we can use. I'll just save it on the desktop. It does throw some warnings, but you don't have to worry about that. That's just me not coding very well in C. It does compile. So if I go back to agent control and tell it I want to download a file, so I can tell it to download this file that I just created. It will automatically, when it downloads it, make it executable as well. So it'll just be in our files directory for this application. So I'll open up MSF console, if I spell it correctly. So I am just going to have it, I did use Windows Interpreter Reverse DCP and gave it this guy as the lhost, so it is just going to call back here. Naturally, we could put this in the cloud somewhere. I could just have an Amazon instance or something for this. And so it would call out through the perimeter. It does, as I mentioned, have an SMS capability. So instead of calling out via TCP or HTTP or HTTPS, whatever you tell it to, you can just have it do a regular reverse shell inline, open up a TCP listener on the phone. So on, say, port 4444, have the target, in this case Windows XP, call back to the phone. The phone can send it out to its controller, in this case 5554, via text message, which the controller will pass it back on to the SPS console, which will show it to you. You can send it commands and it'll send it back through again through SMS, so you can actually bypass the entire perimeter that way. So you can't really do that with emulators. They don't really do SMS properly. Emulate it, if you will, but there are some videos if you look out on the internet that show it, like at Skydong Con, I think 2013. I did it live on stage because I'm insane, but it did work. We'll just set up our handler for Windows Meterpreter. Again, if I can spell it correctly. This is not my day for typing. Again, we're just going to do the regular callback over TCP, so network-based rather than SMS-based. It can do both. So we've got our handler. So now we've had plenty of time to download the files. We're going to do 7 execute command. So it gives us the option to execute downloaded files as well as any built-in commands that we have access to. So just need to give it the IP address and the port we want to attack. That's just based on the C code. Give it the IP address of XP, port 21. Was it downloaded? Yes, so it knows to look in the downloads folder, so that files folder for it. And if we give it a little bit of time, because it does have to check in and get the command, because we used HTTP, and it will execute it. It will run the attack against our Windows XP machine, and then we should get a session in Metasploit. Looks like we just did. So again, they're all in the same network here, so it's not as exciting, but you could see how it would be. We could be far, far away from that XP machine, but the phone goes to work and has direct network access to it. So now we just have a Meterpreter session on it, so we have complete control of it. You could think of this as calling out to the cloud. Probably that XP machine has internet access, so we could start doing some of the things we did in post-exploitation. Find plain text passwords. We got hash thump. We used Mimikatz to get a plain text password. You can run a Meterpreter script, get GUI, to enable remote desktop, which if we weren't on the same network as this, we wouldn't just be able to do this, but just an example. I first shot these as standalone examples to use on stage. Show them I actually got access to the system. I would just turn on remote desktop and show that I could read people's email, because sometimes if you haven't been through this class, just a Meterpreter session may not seem that interesting. So pull up the desktop and show the email. So, just a little bit of an intro to Smartphone Fences Framework. These are just a couple of the things it can do. There's a lot more